What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now, Back to the Past. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to celebrate The Last of Us's 10-year anniversary. I almost got this video out on the day, but June 14th, 2013 is when this game came out, and obviously what it achieved, just on its own, was absolutely incredible. We're going to talk about it. What it achieved afterwards, or what I guess brought to Naughty Dog, with factions, with the second game, and the debate definitely with the second game, with the TV show, with the new factions multiplayer. There's been so much. And even at the time, right, differentiating that, okay, they can do something besides Uncharted. Now, obviously, they did Crash Bandicoot, they did Jak and Daxter, but how about a more gritty, grounded type of game? Uncharted was kind of getting there, right? But what about one that took it even a step further, and thus we got The Last of Us. So I want to talk about my experience playing the game back in 2013 and leading into it, and then, again, we'll talk kind of about the legacy that this game has left behind. I wanted to do this, and I'm going to start doing this for any game that this makes sense in. I actually have the game. So the original, one of the originals, 2013 copy. It comes with everything. We got the disc, we got the case, and we got the back. And I love this game. I love this game, honestly, to death. This is one of my favorite games of all time. Honestly, even, what you're seeing behind you, and then, of course, literally this. Iconic. I honestly think an iconic piece of art. I like what they've done, I guess, since then, but I've always liked the idea, their backs kind of facing, turning Last of Us on the side of it. I absolutely love it. So, all right, let's take ourselves back to 2013. So one thing I remember very clearly is this was the year of The Last of Us, but there was another one. So later on in the year, in the fall, we would eventually get Beyond Two Souls, right, from Quantic Dream. And I remember leading into this game, this was something different for, I guess, both studios. We had Heavy Rain previously, I guess, for Quantic Dream, and then we had this game, The Last of Us, but previously you had Uncharted 3, I guess, to be very specific. And for me, it was kind of a race to which one of these would be the big hit. If you can believe it, I had said, now if I actually had a YouTube channel, I probably would have made videos on this specific topic. I thought Beyond Two Souls was going to be the game. If one of these two games faltered from the past games that the studio had made, I actually thought it was going to be The Last of Us. Now, the game releasing June 14th, right? So I was in school. I do believe I was in high school. I think maybe 10th grade or 11th grade, because I would have been 16, just about to turn 17. So it would have been 11th grade. I was in 11th grade, and I remember I had my phone. I think I was in English class, and I remember checking my phone and seeing one specific thing. First thing I saw for this game was the IGN review from the one, the only Colin Moriarty, who I'm a big fan of, and him splitting off and originally Podcast Beyond, eventually going to Kind of Funny, and then eventually doing Last Stand Media or Colin's Last Stand. I really respect his opinion. I respect it now. I definitely respected it back then as well. And I remember seeing a 10 out of 10 for IGN, which from Colin specifically was an extremely rare thing to do. And thus, then the floodgates open, and you see, oh my God, on Metacritic, this game is getting absolutely outrageously high scores, right? People are loving it. And it's in that moment that I realized I chose the wrong game. Now, I had pre-ordered it. I believe I pre-ordered it. I was ready to go. I picked it up that day, the day it launched. I actually played it with a close friend of mine. I remember saying, oh my God, I thought, and it turns out I like Beyond Two Souls. I actually think I like it more than most people on planet Earth, but it definitely did not match up to The Last of Us. So Last of Us comes out. I remember playing it. And there's one extra tidbit I want to say in terms of my own personal story before we start getting into the weeds of it. So I played it with my friend, right? It was kind of a commonplace with us that big, at least PlayStation exclusives, we played them together. But I remember one very specific thing. He told me, he said, you can play the beginning. You can play the beginning. And we both went in under the assumption, well, the beginning's not going to be that legendary. It's not going to be something that we don't have to play it together. We don't. We could play it separately, or I can play it separately, and then he can play it when he comes over to my house, and we can all be good. Well, little did I know about the opening. So you literally open the game up, Sarah, and it's like, holy, as soon as you see Sarah laying on the couch, you know it's screwed, right? The whole situation is so screwed, and you just get really, really sad. At least I did in that moment. And going through that entire opening, and obviously Sarah dying, and I remember, I don't think I cried. I remember just like my jaw dropping, where it's like that performance. And there's been so many, behind the scenes, and they've reenacted it, right? When they did the Last of Us Live, I think that they did that a few years, or maybe even a year after the game came out. And it's very powerful there, but nothing will ever beat, I believe, the very first time, right? The TV show, I think, did a pretty good job as well, but nothing beats the very first time of you holding Sarah, the shots being fired, and, eventually seeing that she was hit, and just that raw emotion from Troy Baker, I guess, in the moment, and then also from us. And I remember playing it, and I think I texted him, my friend, and I said, like, that was a horrible, horrible idea. Like, we should have played that together, not apart. So that opening will forever, I think, be cemented as one of the greatest openings in a game, period. But honestly, the game itself is so good. One of the things that hasn't aged, at least in discourse, all that well is the gameplay. When it came to the gameplay of the second game, I think the second game took the steps that it needed to take from the first game. There was some complaining, and it's your right to complain, but there were some complaints about the second game's gameplay. I've always liked it. I've always liked the gameplay. If they did a third game, if the multiplayer is somewhat like that, I honestly like it. I do believe in like innovation and taking it, to the next step, but I've never really thought there was all that much wrong with it. I love the crafting, taking off your backpack and making a Molotov or making a bomb and all this stuff. I just always had a blast with it. So gameplay-wise, I guess for the first game, I loved it. Again, you got to put yourself back there, right? You had just played Uncharted 3. I had just played Uncharted 3. And you're going into this game, and it's a bit heavier. It's less reliant on guns, more reliant on like hand-to-hand things, stealth, using the right weapons for the clickers, and sometimes just going completely around enemies. You don't even have to face them, right? Very different than when you would get an Uncharted game. So I think the gameplay, I want to start with the gameplay because I think the story has been talked about so much and we will talk about it, but I think the gameplay is fantastic, pretty diverse. This was the start, or really when it started to get pushed, where, okay, you got to set ladders up in different places and you got to give people boosts, right? And really when The Last of Us did it, it felt like everybody else followed and did it, even though it wasn't, that much of a revolutionary thing. But I loved it. For playing it from start to finish, and it's a meaty game. This is a meaty game, again, even compared to, say, Uncharted. I remember playing with my friend, and it was when you play as Ellie, so you're in like the winter season, and we didn't play it all in one go. It was multiple play sessions, let's say, but I just remember saying, like, holy God, like, this is a while. This has taken quite a bit, and I liked the length. I thought the length of this game is honestly kind of perfect. And again, I think the base game is perfect. So I actually do have, I won't show it to you, but I do have the remaster on PS4. I actually think I have the remaster signed because I met Troy Baker and Nolan North at like fan expos, convention things. Nolan North signed my Uncharted 4. I think Troy Baker signed my Last of Us on PS4. This one is completely, I feel like I almost did it on purpose, where I didn't want anybody to sign it. It's in good condition, I think. But the PS4 version, I do think, has Troy's signature on it for that. So that's epic. I personally believe that. But you had to pay for it, of course. But no, I mean, those versions are great. And, the remake just happened. And people, the PC version definitely wasn't so great. But obviously, people maybe have their personal preference. If I were to replay it, I would definitely play the remaster, right? I think that's kind of my go-to, but there'll always be something special, I think, about the PS3 one. In terms of the story, in terms of the characters, what can you say that's not already been said? But no, I think you gotta say it, right? It's the 10-year anniversary. This, again, just proved at the time how great Naughty Dog was. So leading into this game, and this is what makes it even more odd, right? I love Uncharted. Uncharted is my favorite franchise of all time. And even back then, I had just gotten into it. I definitely got in late with Uncharted, but I did get Uncharted 3, I think, when it came out. That was 2011. So at this point, we're 2 years removed from Uncharted 3. I've played those 3 games. I don't remember when Golden Abyss came out. I did play it when it came out, so maybe that's already happened. So I'm a huge Uncharted guy. I guess I just thought that Naughty Dog couldn't have done it. And, I mean, at the time, and I still kind of believe this, The Last of Us, to me, I think is a better game, and I think I like it more than the 3 Uncharted. Now, I think Uncharted 4, I do actually kind of prefer Uncharted 4 over The Last of Us, but that's a sticky debate, and I don't even know if I'm ready for that conversation or to look myself in the mirror and try to rationalize that to myself. But I remember when this game came out, and I still kind of view this now, Well, when it came out, I thought it was the best game ever created, okay? Now, to be fair, I hadn't played too many games. Again, you're looking back at 2013, and I think I've kind of grown as a gamer as I've gotten into my late teens and then into my 20s, more diverse, and I literally mean that as in I've played way more games, way more franchises, way more genres to try to open it up, because you don't always just want to say, oh, that big AAA game, the one that everybody says is good, that's my favorite game of all time. It's like, all right, do better, right? Maybe try to find like a diamond in the rough. But I do remember at the time, I thought it was, my favorite game. And even now, I mean, if I were to make a top 10 list, I think it'd be very hard to not put this game in the top 10. And a lot of that, well, what does it come down to? A lot of it comes down to the story and the characters. I think Joel and Ellie are phenomenal. I kind of like them 50-50. I'm trying to think in my head, at the time, did I like Ellie, say, more than Joel? I really think what made it so special is the father-daughter bond. I mean, I think that's why it captured the hearts of so many. I think Ellie was very likable, but obviously, that teenage angst and all this stuff, that she's going through. I mean, Ashley Johnson just did such a good job. And then Troy Baker as Joel, I think he knocked it out of the park. I think they both did so good. But everybody, I mean, Tommy, Marlene, like everybody, I think was so good. Story, kind of basic, but at the same time, there was that room for depth. So, you have a father who loses his daughter, just survives, meets somebody else that's just supposed to be cargo, grows into a relationship, and then eventually, you get to the ending. I mean, really, there's a couple like back and forths with Joel and Ellie, but for the most part, that is the plot of the game. Very simplistic, very like just human, and again, grounded. I think that's what makes this different. Yes, you have the clickers and the infected and stuff that obviously make it a little bit less grounded, I guess, than what you could shoot for. But that is at its core what this game is about. Just a father-like figure, or a father. I mean, that's what he really is, right? A father protecting his daughter. And that's what this game boils down to. And then, of course, the legendary and very divisive ending of, was that the right decision? And is Joel the bad guy? And I mean, and those kind of questions that I think people can still argue to today. I think people argued going into Last of Us 2. And then I think when you see what happens to Joel and that fate and what happens just, I guess, in general in The Last of Us Part 2, there's still those discussions. Like, well, was it right for him to do the things that he did? Or is it right for him to have died by Abby and all this stuff? But this game is legendary. I mean, it really is. This is one of my favorite games of all time. I think everything came together so well. I think it's balanced, and just the pacing of it is so good. Whether you're fighting humans, whether you're fighting clickers or infected, or again, there's so many different areas, like Billstown, I think is so good. The hospital, all of these different, and then a lot of these maps obviously got then used for the multiplayer, which Factions is insanely good. I mean, I'm just going to say it right here. I love Factions, and it's actually what makes me very upset about the situation going on right now with the Last of Us multiplayer, right? The rumors, I guess, being that they really maybe don't have it all together. The simple fact for me is I loved Factions, and if you could just do that again, add some more maps, maybe add some more modes. If you want to do Battle Royale, I don't think it's all that complicated. I mean, I guess who am I to say? But I think they had an amazing starting point, and I don't know what's going on, there, but I think Factions is so good. I think it continued from some pretty good multiplayer in the Uncharted games. Uncharted 4 does it, obviously, after this. I think just all around a well-packaged, thing, but honestly a legendary game. And sitting here, 10 years later, you really think about it, I don't know if Naughty Dog would have been what they're considered. Like, Last of Us Part 2 was very divisive, and I think that took a lot of wind out of their sails, like, for sure, but you think to that era, and I think it proved to so many people, including myself, that they could do more than Uncharted. Now, again, I know they did Crash. I know you did Jak and Daxter, but I'm just saying, again, you think about it right there. Even something like me, like I grew up on Crash, but I grew up on Crash as like a 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old. I could care less who Naughty Dog is, you know what I mean? I could care less when even playing Jak and Daxter. I could care less. But, when you start to play the Uncharted, you say, oh, Amy Hennig, who is this individual? Who's this genius? And, you start to, and Neil Druckmann gets brought in, and Bruce Straley, who I think is honestly a very underrated person in this this situation, this story that we're telling. I think Bruce Straley is kind of the unsung hero of the golden age of Naughty Dog. The person who doesn't get talked about enough, obviously a person who left and kind of left the industry, I believe also. But you have this game, knock it out of the park. Obviously very high scores, but also the game sold like hotcakes, and then again spun off a second game, a franchise, and I really think at the time at least cemented Naughty Dog as one of, if not the best, I guess, studios, period. For like first party Sony studios, I think they then become the best one at that time. So good to look back on it. I just have the best memories of it, playing it, remembering all the big moments, thinking Joel dies and he falls and gets the rod stuck through him. Like all that stuff was just so insane to me. Like I just remember being caught off guard. I just remember not wanting it to end. Those feelings only happen to me with certain games, like very, very few. I mean, I can remember like the Uncharted 3s of the world, Uncharted 4, Last of Us. I'm sure I can think of a few more where you don't want it to end. Like, you know, you're getting there and it's just, every part of it is so good. And you say, well, just a little bit more, just, you know, just kind of, and we didn't rush it. I don't know. I want to say 18 hours. The number that's going through my head right now is 18 hours. So I do want to say it took us about 18 hours to beat that game, which I think was quite high considering Uncharted 3 is probably in that like 10 to 12 hour range. So this was quite a bit more than that play length. So let me know what you guys think in the comments about The Last of Us, any of your stories or tales. Make sure as always you're subscribed to the channel, and I hope to see you all on the next one.